And with that, and right at the time, I want to take this opportunity to welcome everyone, to wish you a wonderful good morning to our guests, to our wonderful audience who has registered and decided to join us for our session today on igniting corporate innovation in 2022. And as everyone is arriving to the session, allow me to give it some visual support as well. Welcoming everyone here. As I can see and count, it's around 32 of us already on that meeting, everyone very sharp on time. So thank you everyone for joining. In fact, when the world went virtual, if I can call it like that, like almost 2 years ago, it was the people at Microsoft, they taught me something. And me being from Germany, very often Germans are known for punctuality and stuff. And you know what the people at Microsoft told me? They said, Daniel, the new punctual is 2 minutes after. I said, why is that? And I said, because usually everyone joins sharp on time. But in the virtual world, everyone will need to download the updated version, has to find a password, has to find a link, get the camera settings going. So the new punctual is 2 minutes past. And with that, I wanted to propose that also today, we give it another minute and let everyone arrive and get in position before we kick off the session together. Is that all right for everyone? Now, as we hit, as promised, 2 minutes past, here's how we'd like to start today's session. First and foremost, to everyone who joined us for now, a very warm welcome, both on behalf of Techstars, Nigerian Startup Bill, for joining us in today's session on Igniting Corporate Innovation 2022. Now, usually when these sessions start, we would like to ask you to be fully present, put your phones away, but we'd like to ask you now to please take your phones. To please take your phones, and if you can, to scan this QR code that you see in front of you now. Now, for those of you who may not have their phone with them, or the camera doesn't work or anything, Jewel, my colleague, is so kind, and she put in the chat already a pin or a link and a pin. So if you wanted to enter that in a separate browser or on your phone, that would be great, because that will be part of our introduction, dear esteemed audience and panelists. And with that, you should be seeing on your screen the slide that is appearing now here in the computer as well. And yes, you can press the heart in order to show us that you have reached, that you are there. 8 of us are there, 10. In case anyone needs any help, feel free, please, to put it in the chat and we assist you. My colleague Jewel and I will assist you. 13 of us have reached already. Excellent. And as we are all joining slowly, here's the first question as part of introduction. Where are you joining us from today? Where is everyone joining us from today, dear team? We see Lagos taking a massive lead there already. Abuja, say, where's Port Harcourt today? Other Nigeria, North America, second strongest presence so far. Now, very quickly, I see we are around 44 people on the meeting and only 18 have reached the page of saying where we are from today, just to make sure you're all representing your geographic territory well. 20 of us are here, 3 times Abuja, no one Port Harcourt. All right, we give it a few more seconds, but already a big welcome to Team Lagos, followed closely by Team Abuja, North America. Who is other Nigeria, please? Can you please unmute yourself and tell us where you're joining from? Abba, all right, I'm seeing that, Daniel. Thank you.
Daniel from Abba.
Excellent. Thank you for joining us. Good to have you. Next question we'd like to ask you as part of today's welcome. Which professional audience do you represent? Are you an inspiring founder, a leading corporate innovator, an entrepreneurial government representative, or any other leader? How would you describe yourself so we get to know each other in that environment? All right. Corporate innovators, inspiring founders. Shadrach is using the drawing function there, liking the interaction, Shadrach, nice one. All right, no government representative with us yet. Corporate innovators, 6 other leaders. Okay, excellent. Dear team, last question as part of our initial introduction. We keep that and share that eventually with you at the end of today's session. And that's the following question. All of you allocated an hour of your time today, morning time for most of you. But our question is, what do you expect from today's session? If you could put it in one word on a short phrase, what should happen over the next 50 minutes plus minus, so that you say, hey, my time here with Techstars and Nigerian Startup Bill today was well invested. Current trends, information, a lot of eyes that has insights, ideas, innovation, insight, networking, connection, excellent, liking this approach, corporate insights, networking, knowledge, the networking, the action part. All right, we'll do our best there. But dear esteemed panelists, and we introduce you in a second to the audience, that is what we have as a task today together. That is what our audience came today to experience from us. Impact, solutions. All right, looking good. And before I introduce you, dear esteemed panelists, in a second, is there anything that you see on the screen right now, Madam Jumoke, Odunayo, Sunil, or Abubakar, that you would want to ask about or would want to ask more context about? Any of the points you see on the screen right now?
No, it's quite
clear. Okay, excellent. Thank you. Then with that, and as everyone is continuing to add their ideas, I'd like to take this opportunity and welcome our esteemed panel to today's session. Dear audience, you kindly shared with us where you're from, what are you looking for, and who you represent. And in today's session, over the next 50 minutes, we have a team of 4 esteemed experts with us. And what I'd like to do very briefly, probably, and in that sequence, probably Madame Odunayo, or Madame Jumoke, Madame Odunayo, Sunil, Abubakar, with a very brief introduction to the audience. Is that okay for you?
It is.
Sure. That'd be great.
Yeah.
All right. Madame Jumoke, are you okay to go first?
Okay, fine. Good morning, everybody. My name is Jumoke Ogundare, and I'm the Group CEO of ARM. ARM is an asset management company.
Thank you very much. And thanks for being with us today, Madame Jumoke. Odunayo.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Odunayo Eweniyi. I'm co-founder and COO of PiggyVest. And PiggyVest is a fintech company out of Lagos, Nigeria, focused on micro savings and micro investments. It's nice to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us. Excited to have you. Mr. Abubakar.
My name is Abubakar Suleiman. I'm the CEO of Sterling Bank. We are a mid-sized Nigerian bank, very focused on innovation. Yeah, I think that's about it.
Thank you for being with us. And Sunil, thank you for being here as well.
Hey, good morning. So my name is Sunil Sharma. I'm in Toronto, Canada. I'm the managing director of the Techstars Accelerator here. We're a city program that invests in any type of startup in any industry around the world. And I'm very excited because already we've made 12 investments into African tech companies, and they're some of the most incredible companies we've invested in across the entire world.
Thank you, Sunil. Fantastic. Congratulations to those, both to the investments as well as to the founders who have received the investment. And here's really what we came for today and what was the purpose of our session. As Techstars, we have been running almost 300 accelerator programs globally. And what we do in these programs, we are working with major corporates all around the world, and we have the opportunity to serve founders and entrepreneurs. And what we want to do, we are working hard every day to enabling everyone around the world to contribute to and benefit from entrepreneurs' success. What we also do throughout that, we became an engine, how our clients will call it, for innovation. And this innovation that we do come across, this engine of innovation, we want to share some of this power with you today. And some of the trends that we came across recently are, what is it that organizations, both public and private sector, have done over the past months? How is innovation evolved? And what we see is whether those as separate divisions, whether these are internal, external innovation, whether this is the big focus on blockchain applications in a commercial environment, whether that is the collaboration with founders and to drive external innovation, or also the really institutionalized CVC departments within organizations in order to drive the investment behind the innovation. So we have seen several trends around the world. And with that, we thought of asking you, dear panelists, what is it when it comes to innovation that you see as your priority for 2022? What is your innovation priority for your organization and why? Who would like to go first on that?
Okay, hi everybody, so I can go first. Thank you, Daniel. So, in ARM has really been a major success factor for us is innovation. We're constantly thinking of new ways of doing things because we operate in a dynamic environment. And really to stay relevant, we have to continuously think of ways to innovate. However, when you started, you talked about the pandemic and what has been happening in the environment. A few years back, we realized that we couldn't innovate on our own, and move as fast as the market was moving. So we decided that we need to, make some changes to the way we innovate, and we established a corporate accelerator program in 2018. And we're running the 4th program this year, and we've been working with the fintech community to innovate. And essentially, it's really 3 things for us. Because of the way people relate today as a result of digital technology, the way we work, the way we live, the way customers interact with us and we interact with the market has really changed, and it keeps changing, daily. So basically, what we're interested in interacting with the fintech community is to find ways to improve back office operations, middle office and front office, and looking for new markets, looking at ways we can improve our products. So this year remains a priority for us. How can we continue to remain relevant in the fast-moving world, given that fintech industry is largely built, the business model is largely built on innovation. So we're looking to innovate across those 3 lines: back office, middle office, and front office.
Well, Madam Jumoke, thank you so much. Thank you for going first. And you highlighted a key part there. You said that you had your innovation strategy and you realized, how can we keep up with the pace of innovation in the market? And that's where you said, that's where you as organizations, ARM took decision to collaborate with startups and founders through an accelerator program. Madam Jumoke, thank you for going first there. Mr. Abubakar, can I ask you of what are yours or the bank's innovation priorities 2022 and beyond?
Well, for 2020, important thing we need to solve for is to fix the engine for implementing or executing innovation. I think a combination of COVID, the movement of talent across border, and the significant number of people that are moving from employment into self-employment through the startups mean that the engine for executing innovation is broken, and that no matter what you do, if you don't fix that, all of the ideas will not translate into viable products in the marketplace. So the number one, very boring innovation, but we are trying to innovate how we execute the innovations themselves. That is the 2022 priority. Essentially, what is the mode that allows you to deliver your innovation to the quality and timely? Because obviously you can't keep the talent the way you would normally have kept them before. Going forward, I actually want to innovate in the space of how we take our product to market. So it's not the product themselves. We feel like there are a lot of very interesting products, but because our market is very, we need to localize the marketing ideas that we have imported and make sure that they take the product to market successfully.
Mr. Abubakar, thank you for that. And there were additional elements that you brought here, additional dimension. The brilliant one was movement of talents across borders. I mean, we talk about cross-border, across Africa, Pan-African business development. How can we do that in terms of talent? Excellent point. Thank you for bringing it in. And the engine that you said, the engine of innovation execution. How do we make it happen? And it goes back to what Madame Jumoke was saying, that we have this vision, we have the idea, the market works like that. And what we have done as ARM, we chose to collaborate with founders and startups through an accelerator program in order to execute. So thank you for sharing that. If I can ask you, Odunayo, because you're representing a successful startup. And when we spoke yesterday, we came to the subject of innovation and continuous evolvement. So what's your innovation priority in your young, successful, fast-growing company, PiggyVest?
Right. So I think it might be slightly different, because I think that innately fintech companies are, for the most part, born of innovation. And so like taking a step back to kind of evaluate what should priority look like. And for this year, for 2022, we at PiggyTech have decided that our innovation and our innovative strategies are going to be focused around people. And not people as in talent, although it is important to figure out ways to keep talent, but we're already primed for remote work, or primed for like hybrid strategies. So for us, we're focused on the users, right? How exactly can we continue to innovate to kind of satisfy what user needs are? User needs are constantly evolving and constantly changing. And as we've seen, they're very, very extremely fluid. So how are we going to keep up with that? And we identified three things. One is for the company in and of itself to stay relentlessly curious. And that means that every day we're learning what new things, what new technologies are on the market, like what new user needs look like, what kind of models are they thinking through, and how are people approaching savings and investments. When we started in 2016, it was a far different world than we have today in 2022. And an innovative startup, one that doesn't want to die at least, has to keep up with that. The second thing is to continuously show an appreciation for the differences between the processes that we run and the processes that traditional companies, for instance, run. And that is something that we take pride in. We understand the differences, we see them, and then we appreciate them, and we continue to innovate around them as well. There's a lot of things that banks can do that fintechs can't, but there's also a lot of things that fintechs can that banks cannot. So the idea here is to understand that, appreciate that, and be able to find ways to work around that and continue to do that, because potentially 2020 and 2021 were very similar years in that the pandemic had a really big grip on us, but 2022 is supposed to shape different as the world slowly but surely emerges out of it. And the third thing is to continue to walk the walk, right? When we started 5 years ago, we said we're going to provide a way for young Nigerians to achieve financial freedom, right? That hasn't changed 6 years on, and we hope that that continues to run at the core of the company. Innovation sometimes means change, but sometimes it means being able to stay the same. So we're just kind of trying to balance that.
That was brilliant, Odunayo. Thank you for that. Thank you for summarizing the end with your top 3 priorities: staying curious, recognizing the difference between processes on a founder side, entrepreneurial startup side, but also major corporation, and how can those be aligned. And third one, financial freedom for young Nigerians. Thank you. Sunil, I'm sorry I kept you waiting. And Sunil, you as the managing director of Techstars Toronto, you have the chance to work with organizations all around the world. In addition to what we have heard now, what is it that you came across on innovation priorities, probably in Africa, but around the world, North America and others that you collaborate with?
Yeah, good question. As I was just thinking about it through the responses already, I guess from the point of view of corporations like Sterling Bank and ARM, that's in a way the demand side of innovation. They have objectives for how they want to, introduce innovation to their organizations to make them better, to keep them relevant. I guess the startups could represent the supply side. So PiggyVest as an example, and many other companies. So my job would be to discover talent and innovators who are, within startup organizations, tech companies, producing value that I imagine would be of direct interest to the innovation demand. So the companies either that we have direct relationships, you had a slide earlier, Daniel, with all these logos. Those logos are companies, large companies, most of them well-known, that have entered into some sort of a relationship with Techstars, or we have a relationship with them. And sometimes there's a fit between the startup and one of these companies. And I think the only lesson that I've been learning over the recent times is that this is happening worldwide. It doesn't matter if the company is in Canada, if the startup, or if the demand side of innovation is in Africa. There are tech companies worldwide solving these incredible problems for banking, for insurance, for real estate, for healthcare. And so we're kind of like matchmakers. We just want to produce connections between the demand and the supply side of innovation. And sometimes it comes to some sort of magical outcome. And that's what we love to see here at Techstars.
I'm loving this magical outcome, and then how we bring it in this demand and supply side of things. Thank you for that. Sunil, one final question about that is, us as matchmakers and working with more than 100 corporates around the world, do you see any differences? Do you see any differences when it comes on the demand side of things? Any different demand for innovation? Do you see differences there?
I think there are some differences. It sometimes relates to the local market, the stage at where things are at. But what I'm learning is that it's not always what we expect, that, one country may have lower expectations of innovation because, the economy is kind of unfolding now in front of us, and it hasn't really reached the levels of, whether it's, dollar value or transaction volume. In fact, the countries, across Africa, I feel like are moving faster. So their ability to kind of absorb innovation and their interest in innovation, things seem to happen even faster. And that's why it's exciting to be an investor, even when you're far away, and doing it kind of through the magic of Zoom and other magic references. It makes it very fulfilling to be this kind of matchmaker and bridge between supply and demand of innovation, whether it's within the continent of Africa or bringing startups from different countries and introducing them. And I think it goes in both directions as well.
Excellent. Sunil, thank you for that. And then highlighting the fact that on one side, these demands are localized. On the other side, and there's big opportunity. That was my takeaway. Big opportunity to connect the world even more efficiently, that a supply from one part of the world could solve a demand side on the other one. Now, very briefly, dear panelists, thank you for that great kickoff. I see there's a couple of questions coming into the chat. Thank you, dear audience, for that. Here's what we're going to do. My colleague Jewel, who is with us, she's taking note of your questions, all right? And we made sure that before we close today's session, we can address them in a Q&A with the audience, I hope, and with our panelists. I hope that's acceptable for everyone.
Sure.
If it is, then what we are going to do is we are going back to our audience. Because what we'd like you, dear audience, if we can ask you to take your phones again, in case you closed your browser already, to take your phone again, scan the QR code. If your browser is still open, even better. Because what we'd like to ask you is the following. When the panelists now talked about how does the innovation agenda look like for ARM, what are the priorities for Sterling Bank, and how does PiggyVest see innovation, need for innovation? We keep talking innovation, but we'd like to hear from you, the audience. What does innovation mean to you? What does innovation mean to you? All right, so what do we hear here? So we have questioning the status quo, growth through change. Growth was part of what Madame Jumoke said when AIM was about growth, growing the business. There were two kinds of pains that we wanted to satisfy: internal processes, external growth. There's creativity here, liking that. Impact, forward projection, questioning the status quo. I'm referring back to our panelists. Is there anyone among you, Odunayo, Jumoke, Sunil, or Abubakar? Is there anything that resonates a lot with you and your organization? What you see here, what our audience is saying?
I think what comes across to me, and it's quite local to our environment, is impact. I think more than anything else, the common thread through the best innovation we've seen is that they have impact on the society beyond the businesses themselves.
Impact and impact on society. Thank you for that, Abubakar. Anyone else among the panelists, any particular definition or meaning of innovation that our audience is sharing that resonates with you, that stands out for you, that you'd like to comment on?
I think exponential improvement. I think that something isn't truly innovative if it isn't saving time, resources, and energy from the existing way of doing things. So, yeah.
Excellent one. So exponential improvement in the impact that it will make on time, resources, and energy. Odunayo, thank you for that. Growth via new products, solving problems, making the world better, step change fast. Anything else you'd like to comment on? Sunil, what does innovation mean to you?
I think people, I mean, either innovation is there to serve people as well, and it's only sourced and created by people. So it's really, I think, about talent and the, the needs of people to live better lives, to do things faster, more affordably, and just be at a better state of affairs than prior to the introduction of whatever that innovation was.
Okay, excellent, loving that. Thank you for that. And Madam Jumoke, we want to ask you too now that in your world, what does innovation mean to you as a person and or to AIM?
So just looking at the contributions from the audience, I like questioning status quo. Because for me, you have to constantly think of ways to do things better. And especially now where things are moving very quickly and your customers want something, better things. Even your employees want things to be done differently. So you always have to question, is this the right to do it? Is there a better way to do it? And how can we get this done better? Can we do this on our own, or do we need to partner with other people to get this done? So you have to constantly question your current position to see how you can improve on your position. So for me, and you bring about innovation by doing that.
Liking that, Madame Jumoke, excellent. And what you brought in here, really one additional stakeholder group, if I may call it like that, by referring to employees also. What can we do for employees? Earlier, Abubakar was saying about moving talent, the ability for talent development across Africa. And that leads me to my second main question. And the second main question really goes into the direction what Sunil said earlier about demand for innovation and the supply for innovation. And my question here goes, do you have any examples of when and how you successfully collaborated with founders? Are there any examples where you say in your history of your organization, when were you able to collaborate with founders successfully? And if I can add a second dimension to that question, to think in terms of people, teams, and talent, to think of systems, processes, but even potentially of IP and compliance. So if we think of these multiple dimensions that may sometimes cause a friction when it is about bringing these two together, when have you done it successfully to collaborate, and what made the success happen?
Okay, maybe I can have a go at that.
Okay, thank you, Abubakar.
Thank you. We do have a fairly mature story of collaborating. We work with a small company in the capital market to create iInvest, which is one of the first efforts that had banking input into creating a retail market for investment. Started originally as access to treasury bills and risk-free yields, and now it's matured into a platform where you can also trade equity, buy equities, and invest in banking assets. But the key to, I guess, where how I like to approach this is some kind of internal rule of thumb that we have, that every tech or every entrepreneur that we meet falls into one of three categories. There is what I call the red tech, where you have seen the market that I have, where I'm doing fairly okay, but you think you can do it and take the market from me. And that is a competitive space where we're fighting to keep our market and somebody is trying to take a share of it or all of it. There is what we now call the blue tech, which is the space where there is a demand in the market. The consumer know what they need and nobody is providing for that. I'm not providing for it. I don't have a revenue stream from it. And that is a space where we see opportunity for a lot of collaboration and engagement, because we all stand to be better off by working for that. But increasingly, there's also the space we call the white tech, which is the market that even the consumer does not know exists yet. But somehow, by a combination of the tech that is available and some of the forecasts that we have. So if you ask me, for instance, we will look at the metaverse today as a white tech space where the consumer need itself is not even validated, but you know that you can create a market and then you can participate in it. So we find that the blue tech is the easiest place to collaborate because it does not challenge the position of those who have embedded, who love the status quo. However, we are increasingly also thinking of how we collaborate in the red tech by becoming part of the emerging entrepreneur fighting it, especially if we see a logic to the innovation. So it's really down to figuring out what kind of entrepreneur you are, because that would determine what kind of partnership or collaboration is possible.
Abubakar, that was inspiring. Thank you for sharing that. And as you laid it out, it reminded me of the blue ocean strategy and looking into new business and how you brought it into red tech, the disruptor, the blue tech, the new business opportunity, and the white tech, a market that might be there not known yet. And with your permission, I'd like to give one additional comment from probably, and also Sunil will be able to add more to that, from the supply side. Because what we learned from founders, when they look for world-class corporate partners, what makes them, or what one criteria for world-class is the speed of validation. How much can they validate some of their algorithm or ideas? And the way how you expressed it now is saying you're looking for partners or ideas that need validation. And oftentimes it's the founder that may need you, the bank, a corporate, to validate. Anything, Sunil, you could add to that, this need for validation, how important it is for the founder community?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you're talking about traction and, entrepreneurs build in, create innovation, build products. The idea is that people are going to use those products. There's a demand for it, a need for it, that it works. So usually when you see signs of life with something that's been launched and there's some traction and some numbers, the idea is, well, let's get behind that. Let's add some fuel to this, whether it's a bit of money or just adding potential pilots or customers to have a look and see if this excites them, and then just keep pushing it in this direction of growth. And so what our job is to kind of invest in these early stage entrepreneurs, these tech companies, and introduce them. And then if it turns out in worst case scenario that it's not, the traction isn't there, then you do you change direction, you pivot, and you just react quickly to the change of the market, or you go somewhere else and you find where this problem does exist that you can solve for, and maybe you just point yourself towards another type of demand of innovation in another location or another industry, and see where this founder these founding team where they can take it.
liking that a lot. Sunil, thank you for sharing that. And what you did now for us is you delivered a continuation of what you said in the beginning, when you said we are like matchmakers to bring the supply and demand together. And how does it look like? And it looks like by helping these founders on their journey of trajectory and finding it at times, as you said, if they need to pivot there. Sunil, thank you for that. If I can ask either Odunayo or Madame Jumoke, what are some examples of successfully executed collaboration that you and your organizations have done with founders, and what made it work so successfully?
So if I may, so I will talk about our experience with the Corporate Accelerator program that we run. And it's been a journey for us because coming into that space, one of the things that struck us was really the class of cultures or mindsets, if you like. The way corporates approach problems is very different from the way, entrepreneurial startups, approach problems. And so we had a few teething issues when we started, but the biggest component of success for us is really the quality of the team. So the collaborations that we've had that have really worked for us today are those ones where, you have a committed team, a team that has worked very well, still stayed, they've stayed together, over the years. And they're very responsive, they're on the ball, they understand the business, they're fully committed to it. And that's where, for us, that's a huge success for us. The startups that we've worked very well with, the common denominator is really the quality of the team.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. And what that amplifies what you say, Madame Jumoke, is what we have been leading up to when we talked about talent. When you talk about talent within ARM, you mentioned it earlier, how can innovation serve to satisfy, grow, and develop your talent? It goes back to what Mr. Abubakar said at the beginning. How can we grow and develop talent together across Africa? And you highlighted it now, that a success factor that you saw in startups that you worked with, where teams have been working together for a long time. Now Odunayo, allow me to ask you from the founder side, and since 2016, you've probably had the chance to work with several corporates, whether that is in a commercial business relationship or even from an innovation perspective. What worked very well? What were your learnings that made this relationship successful?
I think that we've had really great relationships with corporates from a commercial standpoint, not so much success on the innovative standpoint. So that still remains, and there's some improvement to be done there. And I think it will be generational differences, cultural differences, executional differences, but largely it's been more straightforward to kind of just do commercial transactions than it is to say, here, let us actually try to work together. That's not to say we don't keep trying. Every year, we've attempted to kind of find collaborative points with corporates, yet to be successful. Fingers crossed for 2022.
Thank you. And Odunayo, with your permission, I'd like to expand a little more on that point, because we heard from Sunil, from Madame Jumoke, and from Abubakar some great success stories and examples. But we'd also like to highlight some pitfalls. And you said that innovation hasn't always been a great result out of collaboration. You say commercially, yes, innovation not always, perhaps because of differences in generational execution. With the experience you have today, early 22, looking back until 2016, what is your recommendation to corporates? What kind of pitfalls to avoid in order to make that
honestly, I think it really depends on who you're speaking to, because every company has kind of a unique DNA. But from a more generic standpoint, I think that we could all kind of serve, and this is very tricky, to be a bit more open to risk. I don't think that there is much of innovation without someone stepping out on a ledge, or whether it's a belief or a way of execution, or taking a bet on people, or taking a bet on a strategy. As a startup, and we have that innate bias, because most startups are products of almost completely risk taking. And so it's kind of baked into the DNA of a founder to experiment a bit more than, say, established corporates will, from a position of they've grown, they know exactly what works, why change it. Fully understandable. From our perspective is, we know what works because we are here because we tweak things every day. So I think that startups could serve to be a bit more understanding of where corporates are coming from. Honestly, a bunch of us move around thinking it's easy for people to be, I suppose, as flexible and as able to move on a dime as startups are. But I also think that corporate companies and traditional companies could serve to be a bit more embracing of risk. No risk, no reward. Innovation without risk isn't really innovation in that way. You have to be making a giant leap of faith to get to that future that we're all looking at. It's like how people invest in cryptocurrency. You never really know, like, which coin is going to be good, which coin is going to be bad. If you're investing in a startup, you don't know who's going to exist next year. You don't know who's going to IPO, who's going to be a unicorn. It's all this, like, the openness and the, like, just like your risk appetite growing and training that muscle is probably what will help to help people work better together. I think that there is something to be said for looking at startups and seeing they've made this journey for 6 years. Look at Paystack, look at Flutterwave, 7 years by making these huge bets, right? There's something there because as we keep like advancing in years, Flutterwave hasn't stopped growing. Paystack hasn't stopped growing. We keep adding users daily. And even if you think what we're doing is iffy, there's something there. And so just like being able to be a bit more embracing of that risk of taking those chances, I think is a good jump off point.
Now, allow me to ask one provocative question, Odunayo. Can I?
Sure.
Are you red tech, blue tech, or white tech?
I think maybe every startup is a combination of both. I don't think that you can actually say we're blue tech because I think that as of today, and I'll speak for myself and maybe some startups I have like knowledge of their operations, is we are, we're a savings and investment platform, right? People can keep money with PiggyVest, people can keep money in the bank, right? That's number one. So in that way, we're probably red tech because now we're fighting all for share of cards. But the way we're blue tech is that banks issue out of the cards that actually work. So there is a way there to work together to make sure that our transactions aren't failing. So there is a point of competition, there's a point of collaboration, and then there's a point of actually starting new things together that's innately present in almost every startup. Even when you as a startup are working with a payment processor like Paystack, Paystack has no idea whether in 10 years or 5 years, you're going to go down the line and build your own payment processor, right? The people who issue you virtual account numbers don't know if you will decide to connect straight to NIBSS and issue your own virtual account numbers. But for the meantime, we're collaborating. And I think that we all kind of need to live in that moment where we're able to work together to achieve a common goal. Can that change? Yes, businesses evolve, but I think that every startup kind of has that element of being red, blue, and white.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for that. That was a powerful answer, Odunayo. Thank you for that. And I want to ask Sunil, with your permission, because Odunayo said it's for corporates to train that muscle of risk appetite and taking the leap of faith. Now, Sunil, how often in your life have you already taken the leap of faith, both personal and on behalf of Techstars, to invest? How many 100 times? You're muted. Sorry, Sunil.
Sorry, maybe about 100 times I've invested or made a transaction, most recently through Techstars or previously through a venture fund. I think the rationale is learning. It's exciting to just learn about. I'm a curious person, so seeing where these innovations are how they're being originated and who the teams are behind them and what is their passion and what's the market for it and how can I add value. So for example, like I don't really come from a background where I have any type of sophisticated understanding of Africa. We're talking, on an Africa-focused panel here, but I can appreciate the challenges that are there in Africa, and what some of the solutions are, or what some of the innovations are that can be directed to make people's lives better, or to serve the corporate innovators. One example, I'll just bring up an example in real estate or properties. That's something that would actually connect us. We have a real estate obsessed society here in North America, in Toronto in particular. Everything is about construction and real estate and buying properties and renting properties, and the market is distorted, and it's not good for young people who are trying to get their start in life. I learned that that's actually very similar conditions in Africa, in cities like Lagos. And so met a company called Rent Small Small that is providing a way for people starting out on their lives to have better access to homes, to accommodation. I felt that problem is important, and it's one that people here in Toronto would understand. And because we adopt mentors and investors that are there to meet the companies, that even if the companies are far away in Lagos or across Africa, they'll appreciate what that problem is. And even what the opportunity is, as how can we invest in that? It's an opportunity to invest in the solution that's being proposed by, in this example, I'm using Rent Small Small. So even without fully appreciating the market conditions, or who back to the demand side of innovation, I'm learning who those companies are. We have two here, Sterling Bank, ARM. I just imagine that these innovations and these solutions are relevant, and it's our job to connect those dots and to basically validate those founders, because we know them and we put our money there. And now we open some doors and we unleash them, and I'm sure that that they and many other companies will be successful over the years to come.
Sunil, thank you for that. And what you have just done for us, you have done two things. Earlier, when you spoke about we are the global connectors, and it's about finding supply from one side of the planet with the demand from the other, you just gave a concrete example how that could look like. So you take the real estate sector, you say there's Canada, where there is probably a demand for innovation, and then there is Lagos as a commercial hub in West Africa, where it has the same challenge, and probably they could become the supply of innovation. So brilliant. Thank you for sharing that and for putting it in such a contextual element. Now, with that, I wanted to ask one more question, and it's a technical one, but I want to bring it up. We have representative from financial services here today. When I speak to clients on the corporate side, to some of our corporate partners, they tell me, yeah, Daniel, we'd love to work with founders, but we have one worry, and it's about the IP. How much of our IP do we share? And it's going in this risk appetite that Odunayo mentioned. Now, given heavy regulation and compliance requirements in financial services, but also in health and health tech, that's another big sector. How do you, Madam Jumoke and Mr. Abubakar, how do you manage to protect your companies, or to let's say comply with the governance of your businesses, yet driving innovation actively? How do you manage that that conundrum?
If I start with, so going back to this experience, I liked what Odunayo said earlier, so I'm just going to digress a little bit about, the experience she's had, or fintechs have had with innovating or collaborating with corporates. Most of the transactions that you find, or most of the collaborations, have really stopped at commercial and has not really moved to innovation. And there's a few reasons for that. So the first is, whilst there's a strong demand for innovation, what you find is that the corporates that want to innovate, the way they think of innovation is bringing a fintech in. But I believe that innovation has to start from within the organization first. There must be a willingness And, you know, corporates, because we have a very different mindset, a very different structure to our business. We're risk averse, we have structures, we have processes, there are certain ways of doing things. The fintechs come, they want certain things to be done, and we have to go to the regulator first. You know, all of those things are not what the fintechs or startups are used to. And basically, they just want this thing for both parties to come together and run with it. And so there's a bit of frustration and friction, and sometimes that just gets in the way and nothing really happens. So it just stops at the commercial point, and then you're not really able to innovate. But from the point of view of the corporate, there are a few things that you need to do. You need to look inwards and make sure that you're organized internally to innovate. So you need to start with your people, with your structure, with what you're measuring. Because from our own experience, what we found is that we've had where we want to innovate, we define the problem statement, we get partners that can solve that problem for us. But when it comes to the actual activity, the integration, it falls apart because, you know, people are just not ready to make that move. And then we then have compliance issues, regulatory issues that we then have to deal with. So if you layer all of that on, you know, the internal structure of the organization, it just makes it very difficult to innovate. So there has to be, it has to start from within. And starting from within also means that you need to work very closely with your regulator. We've had our fingers burnt in trying to, collaborate. And one of the things that we did initially was we're very anxious to innovate and to collaborate with fintechs and we did this without going to our regulator. And of course, we got a slap, on the hand as a result of that. So really, to innovate, you need to start from within. You need to start with your team. You need to start with what you're measuring within the organization. And then you have to be very deliberate in how you interact with your regulator so that your regulator is carried along. So when you get to that point of innovation, you don't have frictions or you don't have delays that could frustrate the relationship between the startup and the corporate.
Well, that was a great answer. Thank you for that comprehensive feedback, Madam Jumoke. And if I can summarize and amplify to everyone within the audience and the panelists, number one that stood out is, again, talent and team, looking inward, starting from within, measuring and matrix of success. So that brings again the human element there, but at the other side also, how do we measure it? How do we recognize progress? And how can we most of all align interests? And the third part, and that was so critical, is how to bring in other stakeholders. And when we say earlier, Sunil said, we as Techstars, we see us as a connector, bringing the network together. And part of the network are universities, our regulators, government, our corporate, our investors, are of course the founders and other institutions. And you just highlighted on this practical example, Madam Jumoke, on bringing the regulator in early, sharing them, what are we up to, and probably even they could become an active part in that relationship, appreciating an innovation in that area. Thank you for that. Now, I'm looking at time. We have another 7 minutes, including the Q&A. I wanted to ask quickly, because Mr. Abubakar, anything that you wanted to add to that, how you manage between what you heard, what founders are looking for, what the supply side is looking for, but also what you have to comply with. What's your internal secret sauce at Sterling, how you manage that?
Well, let me quickly run through. I do believe, Odunayo, I believe that PiggyVest is actually blue tech. I think the value you are creating is creating new wealth and new ecosystem. The fact that you may have a couple of deposits or savings shared, it doesn't impact the existing saving pot. So I don't think your CEO has been in red tech at all. The people that work with you were not saving or investing before you came along. So by all means, there's collaboration for us there. I also think that the entire innovation and entrepreneurial space, both pre-tech and post-tech, is actually a huge sandbox. It's a space where government allows people to truly experiment in a way that they will not permit a corporate to experiment. So I value that sandbox because a lot of what they do, even if I could think about it, I would not be allowed to do it. They're allowed to do it because they are small at the point of starting and they're young and they're allowed to experiment. But for them, I would recommend that as you start to become significant, recognize that you are going to come into the same space where we are constrained and very quickly get a partner that will enable you to navigate that very quickly. And that is why I love the Nigerian Startup Bill. It is an attempt to formalize that ecosystem so that experimentation can continue to happen without the burden of regulation, without the burden of the formal sector. So the greatest gift that we're getting last year and coming into this year is the NSP. It will ensure that more money will go into the startup ecosystem and the sandboxes for experimentation. And finally, I don't worry about sharing IPs with innovators coming my way, because I think all IPs are timing out anyway. What we call IPs and we're protecting are really assets that their economic value is declining every day and very fast. I think the real IP is that capability to execute at speed. So that if you come to me with the ability to execute at speed, I would rather hand over my IP to you and will make it valuable by taking it to market than sitting on something I call an IP and not doing much with it. This is the reason why, as an institution, the entire strategy document and all of our strategy assets are actually in the public space. And we talk about it everywhere we go, because we recognize that there's more value to attract partners into executing your strategy than to protect the strategy and you're unable to execute it yourself. And so to that extent, I don't think there is any IP to protect. I think there is just relationship to build and value really to extract.
I love that, Abubakar. Thank you for that. So when you earlier already gave the example of red, blue, and white tech, I'm laughing at the fact how you said IP is an asset that is rapidly declining and can only be amplified through the speed provided by the founder. And if I go back now to the supply side, Sunil, if I can use your words, the supply of innovation, in fact, that is what founders are looking for. Like we said earlier, founders are looking for partners where they can validate their ideas, their innovation, their algorithm at rapid pace. So there's a massive alignment there. So Abubakar, thank you for that. I'm looking at time. We have 4 more minutes, and there were a couple of questions I saw in the chat there. Jewel, can I ask for your help to pick up the first question that came up? Say who asked the question, and we'll see how our panelists can assist.
Yes, absolutely. So the first question we have comes from Ali, and it is, how do the startup ecosystem players, especially in the financial service space, work together to solve problems, and how are those achieved? So if you think like fintechs, regulators, banks, policymakers, I think y'all touched on it a little bit, but that was the first question we had in the chat.
Okay, Jewel, thank you. And Ali, thank you for that. So it's really how the ecosystem players work together in the financial services space in order to solve these problems. Okay, fintechs, regulators, banks. I think we had the example there on the regulator side of things from Madame Jumoke. Banks, policymakers, we had Abubakar's involvement there. Any final comment there to make to Ali? Or Ali, you can unmute yourself. Is your question answered, or you would like to go further, Ali? Feel free to unmute yourself.
Jumoke, are you having a go at that?
Please go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know that. I think the real challenge we face so far is that there is a lack of alignment between how the innovator ecosystem views the future and how we see it. And that is actually as a result of a lack of a conversation. Part of it, for instance, is that a lot of people who find themselves in entrepreneurship are at the very early stage of risk-taking. And at that point, the value that they imagine doesn't exist yet. Corporates are not able to participate in that value creation at that very early stage of engagement. And I think a lot more conversation will lead to clarity around that. And even where they participate, it might not be as investors, it might just be as partners, commercial, the way Odunayo has put it, and then you can ride up from there.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And what is critical with that, Abubakar, what you said, and I go back to how Techstars operates, we are, for example, focusing only on early stage pre-seed, where we say an idea is there and we can help bringing this idea to fruition. Sunil said earlier, how can we lead that to traction, either on the direction that it goes already or by pivoting it, adjusting the idea, or finding another market. Dear audience, we have another minute to go. And what I'd like to do, with your permission, I'd like to ask you for one last time for one final mentee moment today. For those of you who may require the QR code again, I'm putting it quickly on the screen. For those of you who have their browser still open, it will be easy, because we want to ask you for one thing. What has been the one actionable insight that you took from today's session? Our panelists have been absolutely brilliant in the insights that they kindly shared with us. So what's the one actionable insight that you took away from today's session? So if I look at what I see already, though, it's partnership, collaboration. That's a big element that is coming in there. Opportunities are still there. And remember what we have heard from Odunayo, it's all about curiosity. Staying curious was her pillar number one that has made PiggyVest so successful from 2016 until now. It's curiosity as point number one out of 3. What else do we see? Taking risk. Strengthening that muscle we learned today, this risk-taking muscle. We have Africa's future is bright, innovation classification. Yes, the various ways of how we can innovate. And as you're sharing there your takeaways, your actionable insights, I would like to take the opportunity to thank, first and foremost, our esteemed audience for taking this 1 hour out of your schedule today, joining us at this very first virtual roundtable of Techstars in collaboration with Nigerian Startup Bill, and a big virtual applause and note of appreciation to our esteemed panelists, to Madame Jumoke, Odunayo, Sunil, and Mr. Abubakar for joining us today and sharing your wisdom and experience with us. Thank you to our team of panelists. And before I will be quiet and give the word finally back to our panelists for the note of farewell, I'd like to thank my colleague Jewel, who humbly puts in the screen only Techstars stuff, but her name is Jewel, who organized this entire event, who invited all of you, managed this RSVP process, and made sure everything is working. So Jewel, thank you for waking up early and for making it all happen. And with that, I see our slide is filling up here. I'm stopping the screen share so that we can see each other one more time. And I want to give a hand over to our panelists for a final word of farewell before we all carry on and hopefully see each other soon again. Madame Jumoke, you'd like to go first?
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, everybody, for very active participation. Thank you to my colleagues, panelists on this program. I think for me, I look forward to collaborating with the ecosystem. It's important. Both parties can benefit from it. And I like that Africa's future is bright. I really like that. And I strongly believe that. But I think that it can only happen if we collaborate. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Madame Jumoke. Thank you. It wouldn't have been possible without you. We are thankful to have had you today.
All right. I want to say thank you for having me as well. I think that it's really important to continue to have these conversations. The progress might be slow, but the fact that it's still top of mind means that we are doing something about it. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Great to have you, Odunayo. Great to have your insights, and continuous good luck and success to you in collaborating with Sterling, ARM, and the other financial players in Nigeria and Africa.
Okay, I guess I'm glad to be here for the opportunity to share our insight. And I think I want to thank Techstars and NSB for making this happen. But most importantly, I want to thank those in the entrepreneurial sector, those in the tech sector who have continued to push the needle, because to some extent, the way they infrastructure is today and the way the structure of the economy is, the only way we can innovate is through startups. It is incredibly difficult for corporate to truly innovate, not because they don't have the skills and talent, but because the process of innovation is not enabled by the regulations around which most corporates operate, especially in financial services. So please continue to innovate. But even as you are able to access capital, remember that there are things beyond capital that will make a difference in the competitive landscape as you go forward. And that is a partnership with people who can provide governance as well as advice and mentorship.
Thank you. Abubakar, thank you for that. And thank you for driving home this partnership and collaboration aspect of the theme of today's program. And Sunil, I give the honor to you of concluding today's virtual roundtable.
Oh, well, thank you. I mean, for me, this was just a privilege to learn more. I mean, I'm sitting here all the way in Toronto, and it's just, I'll say that it's been my privilege to have worked with so many great entrepreneurs from Africa. They're the most exciting people I'm getting to know. And I know that my colleagues across Techstars across the world are also just seeing what we have been doing, and they want to be investing in great entrepreneurs from across the continent as well. So we're looking for our next batch. Why not have more tech companies join? That's the miracle of Zoom. We can do this like this. It's a very worthwhile and fruitful experience. We build great friendships, and if we can connect those dots, not only within the continent but across the world, the diaspora, there's Africans everywhere, and they can engage. They can be part of the innovation in fintech and payments and money exchange, in real estate, purchasing assets and investing. I'm very excited by it, and I can't wait to do more of it.
Sunil, thank you very much. Again, on behalf of Techstars and Nigerian Startup Bill, big thank you to everyone. You will receive a summary of today's session, including the recording, and we wish you a successful, safe, and pleasant day ahead. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.